away from Seaport City. Almost surprised that they actually didn't elect to do a little bit more fishing. Could have just been a different player from their trio holding on to that, but Babo was temporarily back in action, eliminated one more time. Cobra, Cranky, and Malioich, they are still playing this southern section of the map, and the outskirts still being within zone means that they can continue to try and find those surge opportunities essentially against teams that were hoping for a reboot instead on the outskirts.
Yeah, I mean, already 2 eliminations on the board, so they've got a bit of that kind of early damage. Will it be enough to kind of do a full dead side rotate? Not quite sure. We'll have to kind of see as time goes on of how many players are up. 75 so far, as it looks like Prax, Maxi, Mystic are going to be using a water sprite here to recuperate what they lost from that engagement. Darky still knocked down on the ground, crawling to see if his trio will be able to help him.
Problem right now though for Mystic and Maxi, and sure, they could always look to try and Void Oni around this issue, but Ein's trio kind of just positioning themselves between that movement into the safety of the next zone. They want to make sure that they are cutting off Mystic, Prax, and Maxi because they know this might be our best opportunity for Surge if they haven't actually found that chance just yet.
They know though, there's another duo behind them alongside the 2 trios, so it's kind of a risky situation in itself. There's always that potential for a third party no matter who takes the first fight, so I believe it's almost more worth it here to just do what Mystic's doing. Farm up, make your way to zone. If you do want to even look for tags, you know, do it from the zone in an elevated position. Shoot at the opponents that, you know, are going in later to the zone. So we'll see what ends up happening, but both zone has appeared. Rift Island is back in business, and Eyedrop, Sky Scroll are going to be the ones to look to take down that Shogun X, get the medallion, and continue on forwards.
And look, they didn't get a chance to actually crane Shogun's Arena in Lobby 1. They still managed to get their hands on that Shogun medallion, though. Whether it was them who directly took out Hedra's trio in that last lobby to get a hold of it or not, hard to say, Takata, but the fact that they're now going to start with control of this Shogun medallion, and a lot of times I do believe that this trio like to opt for medallion priority essentially amongst each other. So I'm really excited to see if they're going to be able to kind of answer that call that I was hoping for in the last game, where if a team has control of this medallion, you can look to play very aggressively for height takes.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be able to capitalize on that, but Maltz is trying to capitalize on a sneaky shot. Unfortunately, it's not going to connect. It's going to use the Oni mask to try and run away, hide a little bit from Hedra, Kira, and Hyper's trio, but they're kind of hungry. They know it's a solo. They know it could be free pickings, and it's even on the way to zone, but they're not going to chase it.
Also, probably don't want to give away too many shots. They're starting to enter that edge of zone. It's very easy to get lobbied if you pull in that undesirable attention. Kind of funny to see an elemental chest this deep.
Yeah, still
having been not cleared out just yet, but it goes how it goes sometimes, especially coming out of Shogun Solitude. Ziffy, Jerdy, and Marine, though, caught a little bit on the Warriors Watch Water.
That's now 5th zone. Next one is going to be the first kind of so-called 50-50 zone, where you can start kind of positioning yourself accordingly depending on how much damage you have, how much of a safe kind of position you want, if you have the opportunity to rotate with the Oni masks or not. So getting closer to the center if possible could be key here, but like we've mentioned previously, fishing is a strong part of the meta. You have a very good chance of getting shield fish without needing a fishing hole. You just fish anywhere you want in a body of water. So you can kind of stack up on a bunch of shield fish, which are incredible for healing yourself quickly in the late game.
Just kind of seems like Marine's fishing party was a bit spoiled there by teams that started just sort of encroaching on their position. Still, teams trying to make their way over some of the shifting elevation. Mountain ranges especially can be pretty vicious to work your way through. Relvis, Davul, Kashi. They're gonna actually dip into the lower parts of this valley, but they know that they've got teams just ahead of them. Still trying to get mats from boulders where possible. Pradaj actually gonna be one of the trios still looking to kind of duke things out there in the distance.
Axe Forest for Vaughn and For9 are 65 below. Good news is, if you look at the mini-map at the bottom right, there's a lot of trios close by, a lot of players that they can take shots on. Sheriff is gonna go down, gets knocked now. They're gonna capitalize on that for the extra damage on the knocked player, as now it might even open up another knockdown. Can they make it 3? Wipe out the whole trio while you're at it for 9, but be careful, as shots from afar are gonna crack for 9. Now the danger levels are increasing, as they're gonna have to take some time to heal up, but the zone is closing.
See, F9 thought that that was just a freebie to slam a trio really quick and get out. What they didn't realize was that Cringe, Mappy, and Cade are the reason why Miruz and Sheriff were in that position in the first place. Just so unfortunate when you get pinched in the lobby like that. But one team's downfall is another team's potential upcoming here, as F9 running it back one more time. See how we got those quick couple of eliminations. And
nice
poor
shot.
Miruz, he was just so stuck there between that other team.
Yeah, did a great job, though, closing out those 2 elims quickly. Right as the shots came in from the third party that got out, is now pre-edits are going to be used. Eric and his trio, 907 above the Storm Surge threshold already. They know they don't need this damage. You could always use extra eliminations, could always use extra loot, but it's not a necessity, so they don't have to risk it all to try and get it. Also being kind of so stuck in the mud here, I hope they kind of maybe elevate themselves a little bit and look for a rotation. They are on the uncongested side of zone, so especially with the Oni masks, they have a lot of options to rotate here, especially, you know, knowing they don't need that damage. So looks like they're going to do exactly that. Meanwhile, the brawl, the chaos is going to continue with I don't even know how many trios on the edge of the storm here.
Look, they might not need damage, but what they definitely need is more mats. That could be a big part of the reason why they're trying to just linger a couple moments longer, see if there might be an opportunity to vulture some of those other teams that were just stuck in that conglomerate of box fight. Hyper, Hedra, Gyora, though, just trailing behind. And one more time, a trio that definitely needed some damage. Don't want to just stay barely above that threshold. They will find solid elimination here. Hopefully Trulex, Tayson, and Chicho have also found more success this time around. And sure enough, these are the damage threshold levels that we kind of expect to see from this team coming out of their position for Boxy.
This is more the Tayson, Trulex, and Chicho Mini-Miner was talking about in the early mid-game, making sure they get more than enough damage while continuing to have a good amount of loot, good amount of materials, and be able to position themselves accordingly on these uncongested sides, get those early rotates. But for the duos that aren't in such of a healthy position, now are forced to look for more damage. Moni is one of the elimination leaders, so aggression is there, but too much aggression isn't always the answer.
They don't want to leave it up to chance, though. Just barely hanging on above that damage threshold. They know they've got to rotate also. The problem, though, very likely that there's still going to be a team hanging out on the top of that Shogun's arena. But now both of these trios down below getting tagged up by that Storm Surge. They waited just a moment too long. Sure, they might be able to get these TPs through, but they want to get ahead because they want to look back, spray, hopefully just enough damage to elevate themselves. It's only 36. It's literally one tag here, but Lushi, he's just not going to find the opening just yet.
Yeah, Moni now got an elimination, but has the Oni mask back in zone. And the issue is, if you looked at the mini-map, the amount of trios that are going to be looking back from the high ground, from the hill, of everybody rotating in, it's just free pickings from the mountain. It's going to be raining down bullets, as now Lushi, Moni, Loki are going to have to kind of find a safe entrance while connecting these shots. It's one of the most difficult positions to be in, and as he missed his Oni mask, I don't know what they're going to do.
Look, at the very least, he didn't miss out on this elimination opportunity, right, Takada? So make do with what you've got. And that's definitely going to be the motto for Monet. That Siphon coming into play very heavily here. But as you already pointed out, all these teams that are already fixated on this Big Bend mountain range. It's going to be so hard for a team to work their way up, especially with a limited mount count as is. Loki, only 3 bandages as well. It is not looking good, Takada.
Yeah, and you know, we've mentioned this earlier, but now all these trios that decided to, you know, take the option and put themselves or position themselves accordingly to take shots of the trios rotating in are now kind of missing out a bit on that rotation quickly towards the next zone. It is going to be a zone that's fully inside of the storm already, so if you're able to kind of be the first trios to get there, it could benefit you later on, but they are going to miss out on that damage from all the trios that rotated in. We'll see how they're able to kind of clean up this rotate. They have to go up a hill, go around a hill. You don't want to land in another trio's box with the Oni mask, so doing everything together with a lot of synergy is crucial.
It seemed as though Maxi, Mystic, and Praxi might have had one of the more ideal positions on top of this mountain range, but again, that could change at a moment's notice. Sky, though, obliterated while looking for some pressure. It's clear that this team wants to make a layer swap. They were hoping to see if they can maybe find a knock or even just apply enough damage that they get a free rotate out of it. Instead, it's going to cost them a good amount of their splashes to make sure that Sky's back to being up and healthy. So much surge, though, Takada. It does mean that they can wait a moment or two longer than everybody else, but high likelihood that they're just going to look for a TP to hide option.
And we'll see that one of the 7 duos that did get a victory out in the set lobbies this season, so hopefully they can do it again. But for Mystic, he's already lost one of his teammates and his other on just a sliver of HP. He can slip in the ice and it could cause him to get eliminated. Both now 12 HP on the board, doing what they can, as now Mystic is gonna get knocked, brought into the box of his opponents. And it looks like Cringe, Mappy, and Cade might be looking at a potential change in layers here. Are they gonna be looking up?
They're gonna have to go for the chop first against Vanjki and Battercry, who aren't trying to make this easy by any means, just continuing to wrap their way. Good amount of investment, though. Practically all of the break. That is going to be all of Cringe's brick at this point, so the hard mats expended does mean that Cringe, Mappy, and K, they feel confident that they're gonna be able to make this transition for a high take.
I like that tarp, though. They went into the storm, ticked a bit of extra damage, but it's okay. They can reheal it up later. They position themselves in the front now. Nobody can cut them off as the Oni masks are coming through. A little bit of desperation as a potential build fight might even break out here. I don't know if you want to keep going up here, but looks like they might have been able to claim it. Nobody contesting. Battercry and his trio here.
It's a duo at this point, though.
Yeah, it is.
Someone is bound to look up soon enough here, especially with some of the teams that we see down below. Marius struggling, though, getting a bit smothered here. Battercry trying to defend this high ground position alongside Vanjki, just taking separate positions temporarily, spraying down onto secondary height. If you're going to try and hold it as a duo, you might as well front. Act like you are a trio in the process, doing a decent job of maintaining towards that front side of zone as well.
Doing a great job of applying pressure to those trios that are second height, and they know now when they build out ahead, their next move is to look back, take shots, but after being cracked, it just opens up another option for them to play more aggressive. Height is going to be given up, as now Cranky and his trio are going to continue to build up. But the triple Oni mask, it looks like another trio wants it as well, as Eyedrop, Sky, and Scroll are continuing to fight this low ground.
All Sky, Scroll, and Eyedrop are waiting for it is a pause in the action, and then they can up. They're already tarping through the secondary height layer towards the front side of zone. So it really feels like it's inevitable for them to try and look for that hide siege themselves. Cade, Cringe, Mappy, though, they're not out of the conversation just yet. Robin gonna be isolated as a member, and now that's just going to be a free refresh there for Cade. A little bit of siphon material as well, but Cringe, Mappy, Cade actually forced to keep trying to tarping through this low ground instead, but they don't have many mats remaining.
That's the main issue. They can't go ahead of zone here. Eyedrop has too many materials, but now as they start to run low, they're forced to look for a refresh, and that's exactly what they are going to secure. Eyedrop, Sky, Scroll doing a great job of staying ahead, looking back in the big tarp they've already made to find those refreshes, continue trying to drop down an opponent, maybe even whoop out a triple spray, anything they can here to continue getting elimination after elimination on the low ground.
They have so much control currently on this low ground. They're going to be able to cut off Mappy as well, but up above, Ewick trying to see if they can maybe find the advantage. They're gonna fall though from that elevated position. Now a solo stuck on height, but Sky, I drop scroll. They might just be content to keep breaking through the low ground instead.
Hewick broke his ankles, left his team now to clutch it out as a solo up above as Cringe is running low on materials. 0 builds left, they're looking up. That's the option. Do they know it was a solo that's dropped down? Elimination from Cringe. Now Cade is gonna go down. Cringe is playing as a solo, just 2 trios up. It looks like it's a 1 versus 3, and I drop Sky and Scroll are gonna be the trio to close it out.
Look, they might not have looked to take height, but at the end of the day, Takada, a Victor Royale is a Victor Royale. I drop more than happy to take their seat on that finals battle bus, and they did it in such a commanding manner as well, taking full control of the low ground, just not allowing anybody to break through their barriers.
I did get scared at a moment because in that last or second to last zone, they did get cut off on low ground, but it pulled back towards where they were already building. So they were able to once again stay ahead and just clean up all the players dropping down that ran out of materials, all the players that were low on shields, literally just cleaning up these scraps to close out and get that victory royale, qualifying them to the major finals. But look, we've had so much going on. There was so many angles, so I want the desk to break this down. Tell me what you guys saw.
Thank you so much. I think I've seen things you wouldn't believe, and yet you have to because you can watch them back on the VOD. And congratulations to Sky, Scroll, and iDrop, and also to Miniminer because they were top on your list of teams you thought would be taking the victory royale today.
Yeah, real bold prediction right there. I'm sure a lot of people would have not had them on their top 5 list. Now, I could have asked my neighbor's dog to predict, and they would have got that, I'm sure, as well. But a really well-played game, really nicely played. Low ground, we broke it down at the beginning of the day, Levin, how they can play that low ground well. And I think the way that they played that, it just makes me think, yeah, you know what, these guys are a low ground team. The way that they were getting those frags, getting those eliminations, staying ahead and making sure there was no height changes like we saw in that game number 1. They played it to perfection.
It was the banker. It was the one that couldn't fail. It was the one that's never failed. I mean, you look at how they played it, like you said, it was, you know, not pitch perfect, to be fair, you know, if I'm being critical. I think there's some minor things they could have done better, as they would know themselves, but it was enough to get the job done. And I think it's great awareness from them in terms of just like, not necessarily like just playing for height in this lobby, where like they know it's going to be quite chaotic, and actually just, you know, choosing to play low and doing it quite well. I think obviously Takata was right to mention how like the sort of last pull sort of maybe favored them a bit, right? Maybe things would have gotten a bit messier had it continued to pull up the hill with that team sort of taking it from them. But they played most of the same game as well as they could have, really, and you know, they'll be happy to get out of this lobby now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was looking at them off spawn yet again, looking at them early game, and you could see sort of the zone being a little bit more favorable for them, and that's where they're sort of staying a lot more together when they're looking for Surge. You saw them just outside of Seaport, outside of that city, and trying to look for those Surge tags, trying to like chop a team down on top of that Surge base, just really staying together for that Surge, and we could see them having a much more fruitful end game because of it, and they just set themselves up so well, and they executed as we know they well can do.
Yeah, I mean, you can see there 15 eliminations from the 2 games.
Crazy.
10 of those, at least, came from that last game. And now they're at the lobby because they've already qualified for the major finals. And we're going to be talking about the trios that are still in the running, still going to be boarding the battle bus around next few games after this break.
shy, cause I'm always in range.
Welcome back to FNCS, and we are so excited to have this show on the road because we've now sent two of our three trios, our three players in each trio. I'm getting all messed up with my threes today, boys. There's three of us here on the analyst desk, but we've only sent two so far. Two trios through to the grand finals of Major Number 1 coming to you later this month. And to be honest, Levin, we were definitely predicting the second game winners to be booking their spot early. Sky Scroll and iDrop, they did take that victory royale, and they took it with 3 still up and running.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you look at just the form of all the teams in this lobby, they're the team most informed. They're the team that have shown, you know, the highest propensity to be able to win games. And so it wasn't really a surprise in my eyes, right? I think the biggest surprise for me thus far, Minnie, I'm looking at Cringe, Cade, and Mappy and just how well they've played. Obviously, in game 1, they were on height and it didn't quite go well for them. This game, right, they had to do the job on mid and low ground and they looked really good. And honestly, they were a final moving zone away from actually winning the game. It was a bit weird, right? When we're watching them in this endgame mini, they were sort of playing like refresh to refresh. Like you look at the mats on Cade, like they've got like nothing, but they still just didn't lose panic, didn't lose hope of that game. And you see here, it was on this zone pool right here, it starts pulling backwards away from them. Had it kept pulling towards them, they honestly might have a chance of winning that game against iDrop.
Yeah, 100%. I think they were doing what they didn't do in the very first game. They were playing those mid to low ground layers. They were getting those refreshes, and they looked up at height at a really good time, but it was just unfortunate that one of them went down there as Mappy earlier on, so they couldn't quite keep all 3 together up on height. And as you say, I think if that zone had played a little bit differently with those refreshes that they had, with the way that we know that they can play, they definitely could have walked home with a win. But really nice, consistent stuff from these guys, which is kind of what I was expecting from this trio. Of course, coming out of Mars Meadows, having a really good drop spot there, uncontested. You'd expect them to do well, but yeah, it's nice to see them there in the top 3.
I mean, there's a couple other teams that I'm looking at, right? And I'm thinking, interesting consistency-wise, obviously, right? You look at UX trio, a bit of an unfortunate end for them, right? Because they're the team that ends up taking height, and they looked like in a decent spot to maybe hold it out. But then, like, you're also looking at them, and they didn't really have much. And then UX, and he unfortunately went down in a bit of an unfortunate way there. But speaking of height, right? I look at Vanjiki, Pixovsky, and Batacry in this game, Mini, and they were, again, another example of sort of what we saw in game 1 from Cringe, Mappy, and Cade, where you have a team that takes height, and then, you know, they just haven't got enough in the tank to actually hold it out throughout the rest of the game, right? These guys, in this circumstance, were actually sort of, the odds were against them, if anything, right? Because they've only got a duo, right? Pixovsky not there. But they take height, and you're thinking, okay, you know, they've got a bit of a hold here, but all those mats they invested to take height, you know, the rest of the mats are running thin, so as soon as any trio starts looking up at them, they're not in the best of spots.
Yeah, they're not. And because they don't have a trio, they can't have one player front side looking back at them, making sure that nobody can TP up. So, of course, there was a duo, or a trio, I should say, on the front side of the zone that just easily looked up and sprayed them out. And it was those lack of materials that they, of course, had that they couldn't quite hold onto it. So, not really ideal from those guys. But it just shows that height is not free. It's not there for the taking necessarily for every single team that's in the lobby right now. So, it can be kind of toppled over for some of the teams that are looking from the front side if you're not in a good situation. So, I'm excited to see what these trios can do for the rest of the games.
Absolutely.
So any bold predictions now that we are nearly halfway through the days, boys, in terms of these new names that we're seeing? Are there any, I wouldn't say pretenders to the throne, but any potentials for the throne that you think could break through this weekend? Minnie?
I mean, I was looking at Ewik right there, prime for success, up on the high ground. Duo looking pretty good. I think they had decent materials as well. I think everything was looking pretty strong for that team. They took high ground at a good time, but unfortunately went down to full damage. It was an absolute nightmare situation for them, but hopefully that's going to propel them through because they have a decent little drop spot, good off-spawn strategy. So that trio I'm going to keep my eyes on for maybe winning a game here.
11?
It's so hard. It's so chaotic in the early game. Like, I've been trying to keep track of just like all the teams moving around us. There's so many different teams and players like move into different spots. Obviously, when you win a game, you leave the lobby, so your spot becomes available. So there's now new teams trying to take that spot. That creates a weird power dynamic. I'm just looking out for what's happening in the early game. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if anyone moves into those vacated drop spots by our winning trio so far. If Frix's trio drops to Demon's Dojo yet again, we have them going for brutal boxcars, but it seems like they've made themselves a new home and they're very happy to stick with it. So we'll see if they do for game number 3 as we head back to our casters, Takata and the best, Taco.
Thanks so much, Desk. And I mean, Levin called it out already, Takata, but there are just so many teams kind of just shifting every which way around the map, and one more spot just became available. Rolling Blossoms Farm with iDrop Sky and Scroll having just moved out, given that Victor Royale for lobby number 2. A lot of big things could take place here in game 3.
Yeah, a lot could happen. I mean, Seaport City, Hopeful Heights, both POIs above and below the drop spot.